Welcome, everybody. It's January 12th, I think, 2023. And the talk this evening, called Healing and Beyond Healing, will be exploring some questions about if you're seeking personal healing in your life, why are you doing that? And if that goes well, how are you going to know? And then what? I know there's big questions, but we'll be a little bit in discussion and exploration mode with some of that. And I like to begin with the prayer, so I'm going to do it like that. If you would, bring a little bit of presence to where you're at. We just have an hour together, so we'll make good use of the time and have a little bit of experiential practice, and hopefully a time for a few questions. And I'm still recovering from bronchitis and COVID, and it's been a really extra special respiratory last 2 months with me and the family and the little kiddos. So if I'm coughing a little bit, like, have mercy. I've noticed that I'm coughing, and I'm here. I'm still intact. So thanks for your understanding about that. We give acknowledgement to the mysterious, coherent source of all that is. We give acknowledgement to our own ancestors. I acknowledge my people. I acknowledge the ancestors who speak through this land here in La Subia, Granada, Andalusia. I give acknowledgement to the other powers that support my life and to the ones who support those present here, and ask that you hold a connective and kind container for the teaching tonight, that you help me to speak from a place of humility and clarity in a way that's useful, and help people here or who listen after to take something of benefit from their lives and leave the rest, and know that we're all already home, and we're all also kind of a mess and working it out. And those two realities are very deeply compatible. So like that, may we enjoy the hour ahead. Thanks. Ashe. So, hey, before we dive in, I want to take just a moment or two to share about what's happening with the organization. We have a course that begins next week called Rituals for Healing Trauma. It's a short course, and I'll be sharing some tangible skills from a ritualist perspective that can complement the excellent needed work of psychotherapy and things like it. That's open for healer type people and just everybody who's working through life in a complicated way. The Ancestral Lineage Healing course, which is a foundational thing that we're up to with the organization, is open. That begins in the start of February. And there's a whole workbook we just wrote for it. I'll be guiding weekly calls with all new content. So it's kind of re-enlivened. So give it a glance if you're interested. And the winter cycle of the Initiations of Life of Ritual course is open as well. So those three are open currently. And finally, just a reminder about the practitioner directory. There's over 100 folks from around the world who guide ancestral healing work, who are available for sessions. It's low-income options. The work's available in a dozen or so languages. And the next cycle, the 7th cycle of training for that, will probably open in February. So those are some of the offerings. Let's start with why do we seek healing to begin with? That might be a question that seems obvious in a way, but it's important to notice our motivation and how motivation can change. It's common to seek healing. I'll name a few reasons, but notice there are ones you're aware of that I'm not naming. One is you're hurting, you're suffering, and it's more painful to not seek healing than to seek it. So you're cornered, and it hurts, and so you're like, all right, well, I'm not very motivated, but my pain is motivating me. Totally fine and understandable reason to be like, I'm going to do something. Another one is to actually be able to meet our needs in the world, because we're faced with outer consequences or shame, or we're getting feedback that our path is blocked unless we make some different choices. Okay, it's not pain that comes from immediately from within, but it's circumstance generated pain. Like, well, okay, I don't want to stay blocked. Let me take some action. It could also be because some party is like, this is the right thing to do. Like, I realize I need it, and I'm going to say yes to it. So it's that inner courage, motivation kind of vibe. It's great. It's a great reason. All these are good reasons, and they're different, and they will function differently as a motivational fuel in the cooker of the work. It's good to notice what's motivating you. A third, and this is also fine, is ambition. Like, you really want to realize your goals in the world, but you realize you're going to get in the way of yourself if you don't clean some stuff up in your life. Like, my choice to, like, from a teenager, I was like, I want to be a ritualist. I didn't call it that, but I'm like, I want to do that, whatever that is. That's exciting. I'm interested in it. And one of the most grounded and helpful things I did was to train as a therapist, and then like do a PhD in psychology and just like do a lot of therapy. Had I not done that, I probably would be just generally more of a pain in the ass with a stronger narcissistic flair and all the, I don't know that I would be like a spiritual teacher supervillain, but more annoying had I not done a lot of therapy. And so sometimes we're just like, I'm going to get in my own way if I don't do this. It is strategically smart for me to go sign up for the healing, even though I don't otherwise want to do it. Also a really fine motivation. And then I would name, like, it's possible there's like a soul level calling, that your soul and your spirit is just like, I am going to kick your ass completely and turn your life upside down if you do not address these things. So it can be a sense of like, God will crush you if you don't make changes, or it can be like this really sweet, like, I am motivated to be my best self and a really wholesome, loving person. Either way, there can be a sense that it's sourcing from this deeper place. Whatever motivation gets you to actually engage, fantastic. The motivation may change over time. So you got a drinking problem and your partner's just like, dude, I'm going to leave you if you don't address your drinking problem. And you're like, okay. And then you go and you like stop drinking and you're kind of addressing it and kind of maybe working at it. And then you separate from that person. Now you're like, nobody's being my bad mommy and telling me to stop drinking now. Do I want to be here because I want to be here? So then you're at a crossroads. Your old motivation is extinguished. So you either need to find a new one or start drinking. And so it matters because once you step into the vessel of healing, the crucible of it, and I'm especially meaning like psychological, spiritual healing. Like, if you need rehab for your knee, it might have all these other layers to it. Or it could be that like you really need different posture a little bit, need to work at it. So I'm a little bit talking about psychological healing and so forth. But there needs to be a bit of a surrender into the vessel of that process, assuming it's a good enough vessel. Like, if you pick a therapist and that therapist happens to be like a really unethical troll of a person, don't stay in that vessel if that becomes apparent. But if it's a good enough vessel, and I'm not talking just about therapy, whatever is like, all right, I'm gonna go to a men's group. I'm gonna like show up different as a parent. I'm gonna like make repairs with people I hurt before. I'm gonna go to AA, whatever your angle is on getting yourself into a healing trajectory. It's probably going to be messy and vulnerable and confusing and destabilizing in some way. That means it's working usually, but there needs to be some kind of breakdown of what was, to allow for something new to emerge usually. And it's like the person who seeks out the healing, if it goes well, isn't the person who exits from that. And so there's some kind of death, even if it's a little death or change. That's part of what I want to speak to a little bit, because it's important to be able to finish a healing process that we've initiated. Sometimes I was recently making metaphor like to chess. I'm just okay at chess, but I like playing and when I can. And there's a whole facet of the game. It's like the end game. It's like how to actually win. And occasionally when you're playing with someone, you'll notice like they're good at chess, but when they start to win, it's like they don't know what to do. Or it's like, oh, you don't know how to finish the game. Like you're just playing, but you don't know how to close it. And on some levels, our healing process can get like that, in the sense that to win is to like, that game's over. And so there's a question here of like, do you want the change that will be called for in the healing you're seeking? Because it's going to mean a substantial change and a kind of death, usually, for your sense of who you are. And it's hard to know what that looks like up front. I say that because if we're not conscious about it, we head into a thing that's going well. It's like, great, I have now made a very comfortable identity as someone who's healing. And then that identity itself becomes a kind of obstacle, or it can eventually. But let's talk about it. We'll get there. The next question is like, how do we know if it's worked or if it's working when you've endeavored some kind of healing for your life? Well, we could say a ton of things. It depends what you're working on. If it's changing in behavior, then of course that behavior actually changes, is one good indicator. But that's one layer. That layer matters. But there can be, to use an addiction metaphor, like a white knuckle, or just like willing it to be different. It's not bad. It's like someone who's like using just sheer effort without doing the inner work to stop drinking is typically in a way better state than someone who's like drinking a lot, to use an addiction metaphor. So there's no judgment about the like white knuckling it, just effort. However, there are invitations to go deeper and be like, what am I actually affirming here? What is the new reality? So looking at the underlying roots of what is driving the thing that you want to change, and knowing how to nurture those aspects of self that were trying to get nurtured in a less helpful way before that. So doing the deeper work will tend to result in even more stable behavioral change, right? And that takes time. It's vulnerable, it's messy, it's imperfect. Like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, half a step back, one, step to the side, and every other thing. So it's messy. But it's important to wonder, what will this look like if it works? And to go a little bit deeper than just like behaviors will change. Like if, for example, somebody has a history or experience of like sexual harm or trauma or abuse, you can set out to be like, wow, I need healing about this. Like, for sure, may you receive tons of really excellent, safe support. And how will you know if it's working? What are some indicators? Maybe it's that you feel safe enough to be in a relationship. Maybe that you're able to establish healthy boundaries and to really find your voice increasingly in the moment. Maybe it's that you're able to experience pleasure in your body and to stay really present for that, and to pace your experience and feel, congruent in the moment. For example, there are specific things you can point to as like, oh, these are indicators that progress is happening. So whatever your thing you're working on is, hopefully you're working on something, because we always got something we're working on. Ideally, it's like polishing the self so we really stay out of our way. It's good to wonder how we'll know if it's working. And in that, I would encourage the affirming of what you are calling in. It's not just stopping unhelpful things. Like, I want to stop raising my voice, or I want to stop, checking my phone so much or whatever. Okay, but what the future self that you imagine that has done that, what does that self embody that's not as present now as it could be? Because that's your guide and that's the reality you're trying to move toward. So whether it's your own process or you're supporting somebody else in their healing, it's worthwhile to slow down and envision the good outcome, make it tangible, and know how to move toward it. And over time, if it's going well, there will be a shift in the balance toward a repair kind of vibe into more of a maintenance or a sustaining changes that have been made kind of vibe. And from that place of maintenance, it's not that you can't have not that we can't have like call it a relapse. It's kind of a heavy language, but just moments where we're less in balance. But hopefully the new equilibrium is easier to reclaim because we've stabilized it a bit, right? But the main point there is affirm what you are calling in. It's not problematic necessarily, but it can be less effective to head into healing where it's just like, I want it to just be different. Like, okay, but be tangible about it if you can be. And what happens if it works? Then what? And this is where I want to head really is this balance between our psychological work and development and healing, and then this other track of like awakening, being like a deeply spiritual present force on earth, and how these are kind of playing out in parallel and not separable processes, right? But how do we think about what happens when a healing process is more in the stabilized state and less in the raw, transformative cooker state? There's not. Of course, there's not one right way to think about it, but I'll share a few. You notice what feels authentic for you. It's like asking, what are we here to do then? Because I don't think we're here just to heal. That sounds rough. It sounds like I could be minimizing the healing. It depends what is meant by that, because sometimes we're given a really large dose of trauma and pain and overwhelm early in life. And it's like, well, there's no small thing to be healing, because it's like years and years and years of carving out just like enough nervous system steadiness to have a decent relationship. So the healing is huge. And if it goes awesome, then what? One way to think about it is that we're here on earth to cultivate character, to cultivate ethics and wisdom, and to know what it is to be like a responsible, wise, and kind human. What does that look like generally, and what does it look like specifically for you and your destiny? That is a focus that feels a little different than I want to heal some stuff up. Not that they can't be totally, side by side. We could think of it in terms of just cultivating presence and greater spiritual presence, and being more arrived, being more awake, something like that. Another way to think of it in terms of what then might be how much responsibility can you handle? Well, I think it's a kind of a bold and maybe ill-advised or maybe wise, I don't know, you decide, kind of prayer to say to the spirits, to God, to the ancestors, to the earth, like, bring me as much responsibility as I can handle well. Not more or less, but just bring me that much, because we're really deep in crisis. Things are really acute, and it's deepening, and it's like the psychic weather is turbulent, with forecast to become more turbulent, right? Anyone with the slightest bit of intuition and or connection to the news and or connection to history or ecology knows that. And so what to do about that? You could like freak out. There's that option. It's not a very sustainable state. You could freak out for a day or a week or a month, but then you tend to get tired of freaking out. So then what? It's like, well, can I help? It's a great question, right? And so that, in a grounded way, is like, hey, mysterious source of reality, keep me busy with the right amount of responsibility in accordance with my destiny. Put me to work. So if you beg God for that, something will happen. You won't be bored. Yeah. So there's that. And the related lens would be like inhabiting your potential, whatever that is, like being the most authentic, expressed version of you that is possible. Or you could just say, like, you want to be enlightened, you want to be awake, you want to be realized, an embodiment of non-dual mysterious goodness. However you like to talk about that. Every tradition's got its own flavor for talking about it, but they're more or less talking about the same thing. And that is a completely fine life goal. It is a good New Year's resolution. There's nothing presumptuous about wanting to be awake. I think it's a fine, proper kind of like thing to have on your to-do list. Some of that, of what I just said, of like, what now? It might be really familiar, really obvious to you, but occasionally the dialogue around like progressive, holistic, spiritual, whatever cultural spaces can collapse into just healing as a focus. Again, not minimizing, but I'm saying personal healing as a lens will eventually bump into limitations, because even if you are the most healed and authentically expressed and realized version of you, if that's your only lens, you're still just focusing on you. And that becomes the limitation at a certain point. The well-adjusted self is the sacrificial offering to go deeper in your spiritual path. It's like the one that, the reality that we're becoming are more like things go well. We have a good year, we have a good decade, a good next incarnation, whatever. Our future self is more awake than we are right now. We have a good week. Let's say, it's next Monday. You're more awake than you are right now, let's say. So that future self is like the one who's going to officiate the funeral for you today. And it's a way of saying that who we have been specifically, it becomes the offering. And I think of insects in this way, that yeah, insects, when they molt, will often eat part of their exoskeleton for the nutrients. And there's a sense of like what's helpful about who you've been and useful for who you're becoming, because who you're becoming is kind of, you think of it like an upgrade on who you've been, a more expressed, realized you, but it's also an expression of yourself that's more able to get out of the way of the bigger forces more and more. And yeah. So that's one principle, is what we have arrived at in our healing process. Um, I know I'm kind of saying the same thing another way, but and eventually we'll head into embodied practice here, open it up for some questions. But I have just a handful of things I want to come across, or I want to come across, and then we'll bring it to direct practice. But this one, through another lens, it's we work to have a really healed and well-adjusted self often if we're addressing wounds from culture, from our childhood, from relational trauma and things like that. And that work is super, super sacred and often really scary and vulnerable and difficult. And it doesn't necessarily end just because you have some big spiritual awakening or you have some breakthrough in your practices. It happens in parallel to all that awakening stuff. But the more you end up being worked through, that authentic worked through self is then the obstacle. The thing that was the prized intentional outcome of your process becomes the block. It's confusing. Like, wait a minute, I've been trying to make this really authentic self, and now I have gone from feeling a sense of really healthy pride and self-esteem and self-love and confidence, and I'm doing self-care, and I have healthy boundaries, and I'm like, have a healthy relationship, and I water the plants, and like all of it. And you're like, and damn, I'm not very happy. Something shifted. Yeah. You're ready to molt. Like there's a good job. You've arrived at the end of this round. You get to die now. Like there's a like identity death. You're like, well, damn, that doesn't feel like a good reward. It's not about like this, how to organize like that. You're going to have that. You're going to get to be a baby again at a new level. And so it's good to have a sensitivity for that. That's just kind of how it's set up. Yeah. And it has implications for how we make an identity for ourselves. Because most people will wear an identity that does not fit them rather than feel confused or have like clothes that don't match, or like not like kind of be the equivalent of identity nude. And what I mean is that we'll keep telling ourselves the stories about who we've been rather than admit that we're confused, because identity confusion feels really vulnerable. And so it's almost always needed, though, if we're going to keep progressing and not just become stagnant. It's like, oh, I'm a well-adjusted person. I'm good. I'm just going to plateau here. I know I got like 40 years of life left, but I'm good. I like the equilibrium. I'm like, okay, but you might get bored of it. Even like give it 5 years and see if you're still that comfortable there. But what it's going to cost is your stories about who you are. And so most of them might come back, but there's a willingness to allow for that to change. And it means moving from hard-earned clarity into fresh confusion. So it's kind of a tough sell emotionally. It's like, oh man, like I thought I had that worked out. You did. You've earned some new, fresh confusion. Great. So I will say that I think over time, the need to have a really fixed story about who we are can soften. And we can, I've seen it in my own life in the last couple of years. I mean, I feel like it's a couple of years ago, maybe with the pandemic, I started half consciously to just like deconstruct parts of my tidy spiritual identity. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get back to putting that together soon. And now I've just like deconstructed it further, and I'm like, I don't know how to put that back together. I happen to have a job as a spiritual teacher, so I'm like, oh, is this okay? I'm like, oh well, I'll just talk about it. And but there's a sense that it doesn't. I'm not so fussed about it. Like what has increased is not my clarity, but my willingness to not reconcile or not have a tidy story about things. So if people needed someone with clarity, I'm like, oh, I'm probably not your helpful guy. So yeah, so there's that. The last couple things, and then we'll head to practice, or maybe have a question or two. If I kind of already said this, but if we have real breakthrough in our healing, and we can like shift something here and there, have like horizontal growth, but if we have like, we could think of it as like vertical, like a shift in our station, and like where our center of gravity, like, whoa, like we just had a big breakthrough. Those don't come every day, but like there's a big shift and you kind of stabilize at a different center of gravity. Tends to resolve problems that we thought were important. Certain things don't even matter anymore. And instead we get a whole fresh, different set of problems. And that we get, it's like we get a certain, like we're suddenly immune to certain kinds of trouble or enemies, and we get a whole new set of enemies. There's a whole new set of challenges, not to be so like video game about it, but there's a sense that if we, this language, I feel kind of allergic to it, but when we raise our vibration, when we're actually like moving from another place of wholeness or connection to spirit or presence, it confers a kind of protection, and it really invokes new trouble that we didn't even consider before. That's fine. That's how it goes. What's useful is to find allies and people who can help us to orient to the new surroundings. And you might not even be seeking that. You're like, yeah, my partner's into spiritual stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then you have a dream, like a big breakthrough dream, and you wake up and you're like, some piece just fell out of my psyche, and it like went down the drain and I can't find it again. Like, I don't know how to put the top back on. I think I'm having a spiritual opening. Oh my God, I'm going to become one of those people or whatever. Like, it's not your identity. You don't have like, I want to be very spiritual identity, but nonetheless, like the weird shit that we're made out of has suddenly made it's broken through to your conscious mind, and it's destabilizing your sense of self. Great. You probably don't want to ignore it. You can try to like patch the leak, but it's going to like come out in other ways. So at that point, like there's a need to roll with it and a bit. And it's some processes are like that. They're what's it called? That's a positive feedback loop. It's not gonna quiet down until it gets more intense. So last two things. One of my plugs here is that we want to allow for ongoing psychological healing to be happening, because also what happens is you think you're pretty worked through, right? And then you have that breakthrough, and suddenly you're not worked through enough anymore. It's not good enough for the amount of like voltage or ashe or energy or like potency that's moving through your system. What was a little crack before is now going to be a rupture if you don't address it. You know, like the childhood pain you carried around, and we're like, yeah, it's all right. You know, I had a sad childhood, but and then you get to a certain level of responsibility. It's like, oh, that actually needs addressed at a deeper level. And I'm talking about myself, but it's fine. It's a fine example. And but I say that because if we make a story, we've worked that through, and then we have a big breakthrough, and the intuition is like, oh, I need to revisit that. That's really normal. your conditions have changed. It's like you're the equivalent of like a public figure with a lot of scrutiny, but like from the spirit world, if you will. And so there's no, you just need to accept, well, that's what, I got to look at it closer. And so we're going to be doing our psychological healing and increasingly allowing for a direct conscious experience of the ground, the base, of God, of the bigger reality, of however you like to think about that or not think about it. That deeper, bigger reality we're all made of can infuse and move through and express itself through your personality. Because the more worked through you are, the less obstruction there is from that big kindness and wisdom. But it's going to be both throughout. And yeah, that's probably most of what I want to say. I could say other things, but let me pause to see if there's maybe like one or two questions, and we'll bring it to practice. If not, and then that'll we'll see where we're at that point. You could raise a hand if you wanted. Yeah. Yeah. Let's just bring it to practice then, because that was a lot of me talking. It's all right. I mean, some talk I'm guiding, but I want to make space for you to listen with your own guidance. And we'll see where we're at that point. So we'll take 10 minutes or so. I'll talk you through a thing. And a lot of it is just about bringing what we've been speaking to more of a listening place in your own intuition and seeing what's relevant for you right now. So take a minute and bring your attention to your heart, your belly, your feet. Be present in your physical body, in your physical space, however you ground and center. And from there, either call present or notice, if they're already present, at least one of the ways that you connect with spirit, with the sacred. It could be your loving ancestors, spiritual guides, the earth, God, love. Notice your connection. And with those supportive powers, take a moment to just confirm that your personal space is clear from interference. And if needed, do a little clearing and just affirm a layer of protection around your space. So you're rooted in your body, connected, clear, and with a little bit of containment and protection. And before doing anything else, take a moment from there and just listen to your own guidance. Is there anything from what we've been speaking to that feels important or that your supportive powers want to highlight for you? Just take a moment to listen. And if that's working for you, you can stay in that place of listening and just tune out the other invitations. And if it's helpful, you could notice one thing you're working on in your life. What's something that you are intending to heal, to resolve, to transform in your life? Pick just one theme, but something that you're still working on. It's not there yet. And just notice whatever that is. And whatever that is, ask yourself in a gentle but kind of direct way, like, why? Why are you working on that? What's your motivation? Why are you trying to address that? There's no right answer on it, but try to dig in a little in a gentle way about what your motivation is. Notice if it's available to, if you feel connected to that motivation, if it feels authentic, take a moment, if it feels available, to renew that intention, to reaffirm it. It's good to be in touch with why you want positive change. Reaffirm it. If it doesn't feel clear, then that's interesting to notice, and it's something to return to in another moment to wonder what's real about it now. I'd invite you from here to see if it's available to envision, to imagine a future reality for you where this goes really well, where you're able to realize the healing intention that you have for yourself. It's like you're calling into your awareness this good outcome, future self. And notice however that presents. Give yourself permission to imagine. You don't even have to believe it's possible. And insofar as you can imagine it, or there's an expression of your future self that's present, is there anything that needs to happen here? Maybe it's like you're asking for a blessing from this future reality that draws you in that direction, or maybe there's a bit of guidance, or just sharing presence for a minute about how your life would be if things go in this way. So acknowledging whatever's there, knowing that you can return to that. There's another thing I want to invite for a moment, which is if it's available, just notice your own center, your core, the bigger ground or base or foundation of reality as that exists within you and as you, God or source or spirit within, however it is. Um, See if, in whatever way it's available, you can just turn your attention to that like big ground or foundation of reality. And insofar as that's present, or you can imagine it, it's fine. See if you can try on like the view or the state that there's actually nothing you need to do right now to be better. There's nothing you need to do to be more deserving of love. Um, there's no self to improve. You're already where you need to be. It's okay just to be right now. See if you can rest in that for just another minute. Give yourself just like a minute to be. Yeah, there's a lot going on the earth and in our lives. And see if you can notice a sense of rest, resting in the bigger reality for a moment. And finally, what I would invite you to try on is see how it feels for you to hold both, to hold both. That on the one hand, there's no self to heal up. There's no need to go anywhere. There's nowhere else. And there's some really relevant and sacred and important healing work and maturation work that we're all involved with, about bringing our gifts, being of service, all the work of like being a good and realized and helpful person. All that at the exact same time, we're arrived, that you can have space for both. We'll start to transition out of the space of guided practice, but it helps you to hang out there. That's great. And it's great to just listen if there's anything else that is important for you to hear or know right now. We'll go ahead in a moment here and open it up to some questions. If folks have questions about anything we've discussed, I see there's a question that's, excuse me, it's come through in the chat, but I'll get to that in just a moment. But you can raise a hand or indicate to our team in the chat that you, or to me directly, that you have a question. It's fine. Mm. Mm. Good to see. Go ahead, Randolph, and then I see Ray Louise in the chat as well. Mm. And if
Hello,
you would
Dan.
just, hey, good to see you. Say just briefly a word where you're calling in from is kind of connective.
I'm in Central California on dry land. So we're
Right.
being blessed much rain. We're even talking about the old flood from 1861-62. So it's biblical proportions of rain here. You touched me deeply, and I was able to track. It was such a privilege to be able to follow you step by step. So thank you very much. I was hearing you describe in different words two ideas that are always very central to what I've heard you speak about in previous months: intent, coming with intent, not only with attention to stay centered, but intent. And the idea that was really powerful for me was that I am the living face of the lineages of the ancients that came before me, and that I'm not here just for my own fun and pleasure, that there's actually a work that I am here to do, and I'm given certain gifts to discover. And that has been very, very helpful. Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Carry on. That sounds good. Yeah. Thanks, Randolph. It's going to appreciate your share. Let me, somebody asked in the chat, can I talk about wound as a superpower? Well, yeah, I can try. What I want to say about that, I can only root in my own experience. I know that for example, my own childhood loneliness, not extreme trauma or anything, but just loneliness, which sucks. It's not like an easy thing either, but it drove me. I didn't piece this together till later to come into relationship with the spirits more and with the earth and the others. I don't know if I would have listened much if I was really engaged by the humans. And that has turned out to be really completely formative and helpful in how I find meaning in the world. It happens to also be my work. It informs how I parent and how I'm a husband and a person and a friend. And if we can convert suffering into compassion or pain into kindness and medicine, that's super, like, that's where it's at, that alchemy. And a lot of character building isn't like, oh, I'm going to sit around in private and like develop some good ethics. I'm just going to read up on it. Like, you could try, but then life is going to knock you on your ass, and then something will happen, and you'll either become bitter or kinder, generally. And if you can nurture the part of us, part of you, part of each of us that wants to be good, in like the really straightforward sense of that, that wants to, and that doesn't mean we can't be like edgy and, you know, have our personality, but that wants to be loving and like on the side of like all that is wholesome and beautiful and worthwhile, like nurturing that, so that when it's easy to do something else, you're like, no, it's hard to stay open, but I'm going to stay open anyways. So in that sense, the pain and the adversity that comes to us becomes a kind of superpower if we're able to relate with the pain in that way and to not contract around it, I think. But the alchemy or the magic by which like hardship, loss, pain, injustice gets transformed into like kindness and service, that's a big topic. Yeah, it's important. So let me say that. And would Rihanna, I'm gonna guess, help me with your name if I'm not capturing it well.
Yes. Hi.
Hey,
Can you see me at all? Oh, there.
I just see. There we go. I see that.
There you
Thanks.
go. A little bright. So my question is really about the ancestors, and it's like I have friends that have studied with you and are do kind of ancestor work and things like that. And this is where I'm curious because I find myself a little bit more of a galactic being, and so I'm wondering about how important it is to really start to understand where we come from as an ancestral lineage piece versus because I've done a lot of personal work and things like that, but I haven't ever gone there. And I'm just kind of really seriously curious of how this plays into, our ascension work, becoming more who we are and things like that.
That's good. I like playfully, I tend to give people who come from that perspective a hard time. I have maybe a lot of like Saturn and Pluto and like these dense limitation favoring energies in my psyche. So I'm like, yes, come to Earth, accept limitation. And the ancestors are great teachers about that. They're like, yes, you can be as vast as the cosmos, and we want to help you to know how to do that in human form, that shits every day and that has like body pain and that has conflictual relationships and that has to deal with like taxes and reactivity and like grouchiness and our own death and all that. And so they're kind of like, I'm generalizing a bit, not like the voice of the ancestors, but they're like, show us how it looks in a body, in this body. Like our enlightenment, so to speak, has to take shape and take expression through our specific conditions. And so, the ancestors are also great about really honing in about our life work, our purpose, where we need to be spending time, and backing us in that. It's also, excuse me. It's also our moment here on Earth. Like the humans, man, we're just fucking making a mess. A really difficult, very sad mess of things. Like, and it's really the only sensible thing to do, to like lean into that and to be with that. It's the only thing to do, really. It's like, pay attention, everybody. Like, we're at a big crossroads, and how are you going to be with that? That is it's not just a human story, of course, but there's no environmental problems, no problems with like the other than human Earth. It's human behavior. And so in a sense, where the action's at is making a deep study of human confusion within yourself
Mhm.
so that you have leverage over it. Because if you don't know the horror of the world in your own heart and psyche, you don't have any leverage over it. When you come to greet the horror in the world, it's like, oh, you've come to judge me. Like, it's kind of like, it doesn't, it's like, you're not welcome in my space because you think I don't live in you. So, well, you don't have leverage. So the ancestors are good teachers about poison.
Poison.
Poison, yes, the poison that's poisoning the earth, the hatred, the meanness, the resentment, and the predatory poison that is within us as a species, that is devastating the biological diversity of this planet.
Right.
You can't work with it well if you don't understand it. And if you don't understand it as part of what you are, you just won't have leverage. You'll just be like, bad other people, those damn bad other people. And it feels very righteous, it's very pleasing, but it doesn't change anything because it's outside of you. So you don't have any leverage. Yeah. But
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
I understand that because I actually, the way I operate too is actually to be in my response to my environment and to feel things very deeply, very, very connected to earth. I feel like I've been here for eons on this planet. I'm very comfortable here. So it's not like but it's not in relationship to ancestors. It's more to nature and my own past timelines of experiences that feel like they're all crossing over in this
If,
life.
if
Is that part of it?
there's no need to do ancestor stuff per se, but if you feel really comfortable in what you're doing, then do something different that's not in your comfort zone.
Well, I like a different angle. I like different
Yeah.
things from different perceptions. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, good. No, thanks. That's a really honest question. Thank you. I see a question that I'm loving in the chat from Michigan. I'm from Ohio, so go Michigan. How to deal with the fear that once I really start deconstructing the self, I won't be able to put everything together again. I'm not laughing I'm not laughing at the person asking it. It's a really lovely question, but it's like, yeah, you won't be able to put it together. But that's not very comforting at all, actually. Well, I don't know. I mean, just talking about it last night. In Islam, in the Quran, the teaching is that there's our recording angels that are recording all of our actions, and that at the end of our life, or at the kind of the reckoning, we're faced with Allah, with God, that we're asked to read that back. And what's interesting is not that it's these other powers, like these big, very heavy and judgmental forces come and put us on a scale. It's like, no, we're asked to read it back. And it's kind of like, well, how'd it go? Oh, we took notes. We took really accurate notes. Just tell us how it went. And you're like, oh, do I have to read them? Be like, you don't have to, but we'll sit here like forever until you do. Be like, all right, well, I guess I'll read it then. And so and then you get to the point where you're like, I kind of saw that there was a bigger reality, but it was very scary. And they're like, yeah. And then we're like, what's the next chapter? Did you do it? You're like, no. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, is that the choice you want to make? Like in that moment, when is that moment now? Do you is that really the choice you want to make? Once you ask that question, you already know the answer to it. And growth doesn't have to be like explosively deconstructing or anything. It's actually often kind of gradual and nice and better with some crying along the way. And so it's fine. Call in support, and it can be fine. But in general, if you always are breaking toward the more emotionally and soul level courageous choice that you could make, you're very unlikely to regret living in that way. Yeah. So it's a really tender question. I hope the answer is a little unconventional answer, but go for it. That's my answer. You'll be all right. You're stronger than you think. Good. Ren? And I know we're at time. I just enjoy hanging out with people. And so roll out if you need to, but I'm happy to chat if people want to stay for a little bit. Yeah.
Hi, I'm in Eastern Washington, and I'm an Ohio girl, born and raised. So understand that Midwest vibe. And I just got a low battery thing, so hopefully I won't fade out here. I'm trying to formulate this question. Having at 68 for more than 50 years working on, when you asked us to choose one thing during the meditation, the one thing that I repeatedly just is the unworthiness, the fundamentally flawed, the unfixable, the perfectionist, judgmental, blah, blah, blah. And I have, like most people on the screen, years of spiritual practice, years of therapy, years of going, coming at this from different angles. And yet it's so persistent. And I have a lot of, sorry if I get teary, I have a lot of health issues and a lot of pain and a lot of kind of scary things happening physically. And I'm meeting those as best I can, which is challenging because I'm a very earth-based, physical, athletic farmer, horsewoman, blah, 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 and having had to give up over and over again the things I love. And anyway, so when we came toward the end of the meditation or the practice, and you talked about holding both, being able to hold both the idea that there's nothing to fix, there's nothing to improve, and at the same time holding the immensity of the challenges and work to be done, both on myself, but more in terms of service and what we need to face and meet in terms of what's going on this planet. I just wonder if you have any advice. I mean, I just feel so like my capacity of my nervous system and my development is just like, I'm kind of at that place where I just kind of, I don't know if I have it, and yet I keep on having it to hold both. Yeah. But boy, I tell you, Daniel, I feel a little on the edge of my capacity.
Yeah. I hear what you're sharing. It's welcome. And it's being at the edge of capacity is not always a bad place to be. In some ways, it's kind of how we grow our capacity. But what occurs to me while you're speaking, one thing is the self doesn't get enlightened. Like our personality, it's just in the passenger seat at a certain point. We have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. It is so easy to get into power struggles. Oh my God, I'll just be like in a power struggle before I realize what happened. I'm like, don't do that. Part of me is like, why? Why can't they do that? I'm like, I don't know, because I just made a rule about it. It's like, I'm losing here. I'm losing. And But it's like that with these different aspects of what we are. It's like, don't be so critical. You need to like drink up the therapy and be a nicer voice in my head. And the voice is just like, oh, you're a bad person. Your therapy's dumb. It's not helping you, or blah, just negative, 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 whatever. And whatever the voice is, it doesn't like. We all have ways that the inner, call it the inner critic, but like we can be harsh with ourselves, right? And psychologically, sure, those are often protective functions, et cetera, but, and there are ways to work with it kindly over time, and maybe it'll soften and maybe it won't, but also like, stop fighting with that part of what we are. Also, there's a way in which, sometimes with the kids when they're screaming, or they're just, I don't even know what they're screaming about. They're just doing some screaming. I'd be like, oh, it's all right. Yeah, the earth is spinning, plants are growing, the kids are screaming. The critical self is criticizing, you know, Amazon is burning, people are making love, like, you know, things are happening. Like there's not, don't make it worse by trying to get the parts of you that cause suffering to be different, because they'll act out even more. So there's that.
Thank you for that reminder. It reminds me of just like a week or so ago, a friend and I were talking. I'm like a flaming 1 on the Enneagram, and I was
I am too. Yeah.
I was judging myself for judging. And this friend of mine who's a 6, and she just looked at me and she said, Ren, you're a 1. You judge. It's okay. I mean, it was like, and I can't describe the relief I felt. It just like, oh yeah, it's just sort of part of my makeup, and I can observe it and I can try to soften it, and I can try to, but anyway, thank you for just reminding me that sometimes just not fighting those parts of myself.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say, and this is to, you know, to anyone really, is our self is not personal. It's not, they're parts of yourself, but they're just experiences on a certain level. They're not, or think of the psyche, our thoughts, our emotions as like ecological process. Like you wouldn't, like when we first moved here, Andalusia, in September, it was hot. I mean, it's hot in general, but there was like fires, like wildfires, and some of the like dust storm from North Africa. It was a little apocalyptic with the smoke, and it's like 100 degrees and like you can't even see. I'm like, whew, this is rough. But if I was like, what is this like smoke in myself? I need to make it less smoky. And I was like really stressing out trying to change the smoke in my mind. It would be a strange approach. There would be a sense of like, well, no, that's bigger than just you, right? That's not like your smoke. That's like the smoke in the air. But I don't know that our thoughts are actually that different. So you don't have to, you could ask that self that's critical if it's yours, so to speak, or if it's just kind of part of what is. So there's that too. It can, like, you can relax the sense of it's all of my interior experience is personal. Yeah. But kindness to what you're saying. Sometimes it's just like, well, I'm suffering, but I'm still going to roll up my sleeves and be helpful today. Yeah, they're compatible. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some other questions in the chat, but yeah. Oh, geez. I'll try to say a thing about that. The Elia de Nicaragua, ya estás aquí. Sí. Okay. It says, I wanted to ask, how does it, sorry, I don't usually name people, now I named you, but I noticed you on the call before. Hopefully you're still here. Feel free to speak live if you want, but asks, how does a decolonial ancestral spiritual practice look like for you? Could you share how you've navigated colonial wounds in your own ancestry? The first thing I'd say about that is that whether or not you've ever heard the word colonialism in some way, pretty much everybody in some capacity or another has been impacted in big ways, whether or not we realize it. But it's a long history, but the last 500 years have been really rough, of especially European occupation of land and all kinds of genocidal badness. And I mean, I grew up 5, 7, 10 generations at times into the settler colonialism project in North America. My ancestors are English, German, set early arrivals. And so there's just a backlog of all kinds of things, but also grief and avoidance and dysfunction. And I say that with respect for my people. A lot of my family are like good and loving people. So I don't mean to dehumanize them in that. But when I zoom out a little and look at the bigger patterns, this move we just made to Spain, I'm just like, I only understand a fraction of it at this point. But part of what it has meant for me is accepting, basically saying, this colonialist project is not one, it's not working out. Like I need to try a separation, a breakup. And even though it's complicated, Spain has its own complicated histories. I'm not idealizing anybody, but for me, like usually I would answer this question in a different way. I could answer it in a more methodical way if it was the point of the main teaching, but I'm speaking a little bit off the cuff because I'm 5 months into moving our family out of the country. And I don't want to go back. I feel a lot of betrayal and a lot of betrayal is kind of closest word, like hurt. And just like, that was a bad idea. Why'd you do those things? About the conditions that the last couple 100 years of my people. And so, how do I work with it? Personally, I'm still piecing it together, but I'm trying to tell the truth about the impact and to inhabit my responsibilities that are inherited because of that impact. And so part of how I stay, how I mitigate or minimize the fragmentation of all that is to try to participate in the healing and to find a way to do that in a way that is gentle and kind. And I'm trying not to rush my prayers these days, and trying not to, I'm enjoying the Spanish habit of not asking people what they do for a living when you first meet them. And I'm trying to move slower and know that feeling pleasure and being kind is one of the antidotes to colonialism, because it's a real joy killer, systemically, interpersonally, whatever. So loving myself and the people in my life and the earth well is part of my pragmatic way of moving with that. The ancestor thing is a bigger question, but with kindness and with honesty is what I'd say. Thanks. Yeah. I know I have to take another question. Jade, not coughing as much today. I enjoy the company.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Daniel. I really was moved, and I had tears come up during the embodied practice. My name is Jade. I'm from Vancouver Island in Canada. And my question, feeling lots of nervousness.
Take your time, that's fine.
Yeah, my question is, I've lived with a lot of anxiety, depression, grief, and more recently chronic illness. And I think really as a result of that holding in emotions. And it's hard for me to imagine a change in my future. It's hard to, it's just hard to imagine. Yeah, it's hard to imagine my life in a positive way. And I know that's kind of a default setting, and I haven't really worked with that belief that much, but when we did the feelingization visualization, the thing that came up that I am changing, working with, is being kinder on myself and less judgment. And yeah, and then so my question is, like the end, I'm just wondering, like, what is my end result, or what is my so I'm kinder on myself, I feel bigger and richer within myself, my heart's bigger, and from that place I become stronger so that I can be there for other people. I can have like right now I'm really isolated because my energy is so down, so I can't help my mom, I can't help my good friends or children. And I guess my final question is, like, is that enough of a kind of like vision? Like, I mean, I would love to be able to teach children, which is what I used to do, and like impact in a huge way. But for now, like, I want to be kinder on myself so that I can be more of myself. And I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you well. It's
is
coming.
low on my
No,
computer,
it's
but-
clear. It's clear. I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, it's crappy.
I can hear you. It's okay. You can hear me also,
I
Jane?
can't even hear you.
You can, you said, yeah?
I guess I
Yeah.
can hear you now.
Great. I'll go ahead and respond. And if it's choppy, you'll get the recording as well. It's a great question.
Maybe I'll
I
just
hear.
move over to my phone because I
Yeah.
can't hear it at all.
It's okay. I heard the question. I'll mute you, but go ahead and I'll go ahead and respond, and then you can take it off mute after. You know, it's not my place to presume to know how it ought to be for you, for one. So I'll try to say a thing, and you can take what lands, and the rest leave it. It's anxiety's hard. It's hard to, like the depression, that kind of stuff you're speaking to, like kindness. That's tough to be with, and it doesn't tend to shift quickly or all at once or anything like that. And it might be that those are things that you walk with for the rest of your life. You might or you might not. In some ways, it's not totally the point. We're gonna like, may you experience less anxiety, more happiness, all the, like, may you be well in all the conventional meanings of that, for sure. And all the things that support that, being kind with yourself, fantastic. Like, yes, like it sounds like you have a good instinct on what's helpful. Being able to show up well for others, fantastic, all that. And what I would add to the mix, if you don't already have a frame for it, it's useful to also think of ourselves in the big arc of time, whether or not the reincarnation map of some sort lands for you, to think of you like what you are over many lifetimes, or to be in touch with your ancient or galactic, if you will. So I'm teasing a little person earlier. Hi, Rihanna. But your ancient, like star self, like there's truth to that, right? And that it doesn't diminish or erase at all what's happening. The part of us that's suffering, the part of us that's kind of lonely, the part of us that's in physical pain, or the struggling to make ends meet or whatever. It's just that you invite this like interdimensional, ancient, like otherworldly manifestation of what you are over many lifetimes to also like sit down at the dinner table with you. You make space for that in who you are. And that can help to bring a little perspective at times. And even the folks who are really seen as quite standout human beings. Like I was listening to a biography of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his life. And he had an interesting life, as people who have a big calling tend to. And for the last 23 years of his life, he was receiving transmissions, revelations, communications from Angel Jabriel or Gabriel or God, or however you want to frame it. But it had this like weighty calling, and also had to navigate people poisoning him, trying to kill him, like navigating all kinds of complex politics and all kinds of stuff, like difficult stuff that you got to really like pay attention to and be on point with. And it could go either way. And periods of discouragement. And so there are being in touch with a big calling, or just being in touch with the big reality that we're made of, is so completely and totally compatible with suffering on any given day. Or there's this very famous dude from Palestine who was apparently was very spiritually connected and had an experience of being crucified. And that like whatever you want to think about that, it's like spiritual connectedness having a really hard day happening at the same time, right? And so the I say that because it can creep in that if we're feeling discouraged, we're feeling alone, we're feeling just anxious and kind of like not very good about ourselves, somehow it's like there's a view that that's less holy or less. And that extra layer doesn't have to be there. Like we can still recognize, if we cultivate the remembering of it, that we're part of this big reality, even though we're having a hard time. Or the most we can do is just show up for making sure we get out of bed and clean our bodies a couple times a week. That's what we got. And that doesn't make you less spiritual. And feeling in touch with the bigger reality can be an important added nutrient in the mix. So that's the main thing I would say in this moment is like, add that nutrient in the mix, and that, you know, and see if it's any different. May not be, but there's still flowers blooming in your neighborhood, or maybe not right now. It's January where you're at probably, but it's January everywhere actually. But and you get what I mean. Yeah. I hope that lands okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. I should probably peace out here, but let me see if there's any last thing. I apologize. I'm not. There's a lot of things in the chat, so I'm not picking up every question. But there's two last things I'll speak to. One is someone asked, can you have a breakthrough on some piece of work, and then what follows, what emerges from that, actually feels heavier. Like a raising your vibration results in something that feels like thicker and more dense and heavy. Yeah, totally. It's kind of a downer. And it can be confusing because it's easy to then wonder if you're doing it wrong. Because you come to associate expansive, pleasant states with more spiritual or on the right track, or, did I follow the wrong breadcrumbs? Like, how did I get here? It's like this complicated witch house. Like, oh yes, you were going to Baba Yaga's house the whole time. Like, why? Nobody told me that. And so, like, trust me, walk in the front door, knock first. But yeah, partly it's that you're more ready to handle stuff. Like, great, you fortified yourself. Now you're ready to make an introductory study of poison. We're going to poison you a little bit to see what happens. Like, what? Like, oh yeah, you'll survive, but let's see what happens. Like, so sometimes that's how we learn. And and the spirits might be like, oh, we thought you made some big prayer about wanting to be very awake. We might have misheard you. And so if we take it back, you can, we have lots of red pills if you want to just like, whichever pill it is, you get the metaphor. So you can always like try to put the lid back on the thing, but if you're committed to being awake, it means recognizing that nothing's ultimately foreign to you. So it means sooner or later, you'll need to make a study of the horror in the world, a very personal study of it. And well, that's hard. And yeah, it can feel thicker and heavier, to be sure. It's good to have allies in that. Some other people who have traversed the terrain. Last question, I think. Where to go here? Oh, kind of related. It's one of my topics. We're getting our 2023 courses arranged for Ancestral Medicine. I'm trying to make a pitch to finally do like I don't like calling it dark arts exactly, but like, a course on evil and like sinister things. I think it's an underappreciated aspect of the sacred. But the question is, how does one fortify oneself against new enemies, so to speak, that present once new levels of healing occur? It's a great question. What generally the pattern is like, welcome, you've graduated from the developmental stage where you were at. Welcome to this terrain that you actually don't know anything about, or maybe if you've studied it intellectually have heard of, but now we'll have to reconcile with what's actually happening. And you have all new challenges, including like life challenges that are not very glamorous, but are going to make it harder. It's like, welcome, you have a new child. Oh, did no one mention to you, you won't be sleeping well for the next 8 years? Be like, oh, I didn't really appreciate that was a factor, whatever it is. And so, however, there are additional gifts and blessings that are the exact tools and remedies you'll need to navigate this, and that you didn't have access to them before because you didn't need them. So each new developmental stage comes with its ordeals and its medicines and remedies. And it's helpful to, with parenting, it might be like, but you're going to really love these little kids. And then you won't even mind that you're tired, mostly. And it'll all be worth it in some sacred way. They're like, oh, great. And but it's very cliche, but it's true. And for me, at least. So it's important to have allies in spirit. Those might be discrete forces like the ancestors, the deities, the earth, the animal and plant spirits, whoever you relate with. It becomes important to have friends in spirit who can help you to navigate things. And so sometimes you need to up your game spiritually to know how to, however that looks, to be able to have the presence and fortitude to navigate it. Because there's often a tendency when you get dropped off at a new, like, you know, developmental level or something, to it's hard at first because it's vulnerable. You go from, I got this really worked out, to like, damn, I just traded my worked out self in for a confused beginner self. Yeah, good. That means it's working. It's just vulnerable though. But you'll need to ask for help, and the help will be available. That's what I would say about it. Typically, it doesn't mean there's going to always be a good outcome, but yeah. Okay. That's it's enjoyable for me, obviously, to hang out and chat. And so I appreciate your care and presence, and come be involved with stuff if you want. There's lots of accessibility and ways to connect, and we have a good time. This is kind of how the actual classes go too. So I appreciate all of you and hope you found something beneficial from the time. Take good care.